myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say to...
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Thursday night means I'm joined by the two legends, Malcolm MacDonald and Gibbo. How are you, lads?
Hi, it's fine, Steve. Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Gibbo.
Hi, guys.
Great to see you both, as always. And we've got 1 hour to talk about Newcastle United, but also England. And John, what's your appraisal on England's week?
Not been good by any means. We would talk about Italy and Germany normally being tough games historically, etc. Not quite as much these days. But we were talking just a little while ago about whether England could win the World Cup. Now we're talking about whether we win a game in the World Cup. I mean, it's been a dramatic overhaul. It was a seesaw match with Germany. And frankly, with no particular wish for it to happen, but I think we're seeing the death throes of Gareth Southgate. I think that whatever happens in the World Cup finals, unless we win the World Cup, and I'm not expecting that Gareth will probably resign, fall on his sword, rather than be pushed by the FA, who really don't want to be in a situation of having to appoint a New England manager. They would prefer not to do that. But I've got a feeling, and I don't say it with any relish whatsoever, but I've got a feeling that this might be the last tournament of Southgate.
Yeah, I think you've got a very strong point there, John. It's amazing, isn't it, that here we are, literally just a matter of weeks before the World Cup. And and what we've seen over the past couple of weeks from England is so ragbaggish. You know, that, okay, at times they sort of pass it about, okay, but they just don't look as if they're going to score a goal. I know they came back late against Germany, but even Germany aren't looking a good side at all to what we're used to from them. And against Italy, can you remember England having a shot at goal?
Not of any consequence. I mean,
no.
I honestly think, Malcolm, and I know the 3-3 scoreline made the Germany game look that much different. But
it really flattered them, John.
Yeah, it was just for about quarter of an hour or something, wasn't it, when we came in with 3 goals. I think one of our problems is that, in a way, Southgate now, and he's done well in getting us to semi-finals and finals of recent tournaments, but I look at him now and I wonder if he is looking the same sort of manager that Bruce was at Newcastle. And by that, I mean, he's cautious. The minute we play half-decent side, either historically or genuinely, it's 5 at the back and it's sitting cautious. And he doesn't take the handbrake off. England play with the handbrake on in the way I think Newcastle United used to play with the handbrake on. And really, if you're going to win a tournament, asking another question, Malcolm, when is the last time you saw a country win either a European title or a world title with the handbrake on?
No,
it doesn't happen. Tournaments that way.
Yeah, you have to really go for it. Do you remember the outsiders, Greece? They won the European tournament.
They might have been the only one
they just went for it.
Yes.
And everybody was delighted at seeing them, and they were cheering them on simply because they enjoyed watching these guys play.
I also watched, Malcolm. I don't know about you two guys. What I would like to think. What do you think? Watching. And I've done a lot of manager watching recently with all the managers Newcastle have had in the past, not Eddie now, but looking very, very closely at the Gareth Southgate I'm seeing now, and the one I saw a short while ago and beyond that time, his body language tells me he's extremely unhappy. I believe he will quit after the World Cup.
After the World Cup.
After the World Cup, no question. We will go to the World Cup as it is. It's far too late to change horses. We will go as we stand. But he looks an unhappy bunny, and I think he will fall on his sword after the World Cup.
Okay, but his employers are the FA. Have the FA been asleep at their post?
Well, when were they last awake, Malcolm?
Yeah,
point taken.
It is a good point. I mean, look, for me, I've lost interest with England, lads, and I told you this last week. I don't follow England as avidly as I follow Newcastle. But to be honest, the 3-3 draw, I wasn't even watching it. I flicked. I was channel hopping. England were 2-0 down. England scored, which is what dragged me in, and they went 3-2 up. And we ended up getting a 3-3 draw. But at the end of the day, John, I just think the Nations League, and we've spoken about it this week on the show, the Nations League is something that football fans don't really understand. Why do national teams get relegated? England are now relegated.
And Scotland are promoted.
Yeah. It's bizarre.
Yeah. And by the way, do we need another international competition for the international side? We've had the European Championships, we've got the World Cups, we've got all the qualifying for those tournaments, which take 2 years or whatever they take. Do we need yet? There seems to be an obsession in football, and perhaps at club level, where you come up with the Europa League and then some other conference, Europa Conference. What the heck's all that about at club level as well? I mean, we're getting far too many cricket. Crikey me, cricketers are now dropping like autumn leaves because they're playing in so many competitions. I mean, Stokes, the England skipper, he's saying, I need a breather somewhere along the line. I can't get me breath. It is getting sport is like, oh, it's a money raiser. The public love it. So let's cram as many matches. We don't care what format or what's happening in as we can. And it's just too much. And for the public, with international football, the World Cup's way above anything else. And then we can just about stand the European Championships. But anything after that is just heaping more fuel on the fire. We don't need.
And also, do you feel that this country is taking this particular World Cup really seriously, like we take other World Cups, simply because it's sort of being played 5 months later than normal
during the season,
and also it's being played in a country that's is going to be absolutely sweltering with weather that just is not suitable to football.
Yeah, it's a crazy one this year. There's absolutely no question.
Yes, and they haven't had a stadium to start with. They've had to build them all, especially for a World Cup. And I just find that.
Well, we don't want to get onto the corrupt FIFA and UEFA situation, because we know that is exactly what it's all about, and exactly why it's ended up in Qatar, because of all the corrupt shenanigans that went on behind the scenes. But I mean, just to before we finish off on England, guys, just to throw in a couple of Newcastle United things in the equation, because I think we should. One, I felt desperate for Nick Pope because he had an awful game. Bless him. I watched the whole game and I watched it from the start. And I thought in the first 5 minutes, the ball was played back to him. It was a simple kick through it and build up. Now, when Nick played for Burnley, he just put his boot through it. That's the way Burnley played. He wasn't a play out from the back guy. He didn't try to do what the Man City goalie and the Liverpool goalie, both Brazilians, who are terrific with their feet, played out from the back. He didn't do it. At Burnley, whack, straight up the pop. A wonderful shot stopper, a terrific getting crosses out the air, I rate him hugely highly. In the first 5 minutes, and he has admitted that since he come to Newcastle in training, he's been doing more playing with his feet because Newcastle want to play out the way so many teams do now. I felt within the first 5-10 minutes of the game against Germany, he played out with his feet. Once he played it 10 foot over the guy's head, standing on the touchline, and went out for a throw-in. Second time, he got closed down by the centre forward and had a scuff at it. And I thought, oh, dearie me, it's going to be one of those nights. Didn't have a chance with the first 2 goals. Unfortunately, give away a very bad one. All I can take out of that, as far as I'm concerned, is I'm glad if he's going to have a stinker, it's going to be with Newcastle. It's going to be with
England.
Newcastle, because all goalkeepers are going to have a stinker somewhere. No, I don't think he'll carry it into Fulham, because I think he's a confident lad generally, and I think I'm unwavering in my support for him. I think he's a terrific goalkeeper. He's done terrific for us. The second thing I want to throw in from us, when Southgate falls on his sword, as I'm suggesting he does, don't bother coming there for Eddie Howe, because we ain't going to let him go, baby. So you can get that one right. Get that out the bath now before we go any further. Eddie Howe is staying where he is. And what I'm going to say, final thing, because I feel this strongly on Eddie Howe, he's done a terrific job here. Yes, he can do with a win, but he's done a terrific job here. Eddie has built up this wonderful camaraderie we've got, this wonderful spirit within the club and including supporters, because he has said to everybody, we're all in this together. He has said to all the players, we're all in this together. He said to the fans, we're in this together, and that includes you. And it's all for one and one for all. If you then leave for England, and I'm not suggesting for 1 second he would contemplate it, because I've got no inside knowledge on that, but it would leave a hollow ring about it if a man that's built his club reputation on all for one and one for all left for England. And there's 2 occasions when managers have bailed out of Newcastle United and it's left a very bad taste. One is including the obvious, which is the man sitting to my right as you look at the screen, when Gordon Lee sold Supermac, sold Hibbert, and then didn't even stay to see the job through that he'd started, even though I disagreed vehemently with the job, but took to his toes to Everton. You don't sell the club's greatest 2 players and then bugger off. So that was one time. The other time was when Kevin Keegan talked with Ginola out of going to Barcelona by telling him the wonderful future of Newcastle United. This was with the entertainers, as you know. Wonderful future of Newcastle United. Ginola turns down Barcelona, and then KK takes to his toes. Ginola was absolutely furious about that. So that's happened twice to Newcastle. I don't think it'll happen a third time, because I think there's too much happening at Newcastle. He's got a better chance of winning something at Newcastle than he has winning something with England. And in its daily involvement, the bandwagon is already underway. It's got such a fan base. There's so many pluses here, not so many pluses with England. So FA, don't bother coming. We're keeping Eddie. He's going to be happy to stay here. This club's going places a lot more than England is. And so 2 things, I'm with Pope, and don't bother coming shopping for Mr. Howe.
Yeah, well, I'm with you on both. Certainly, I'm with Pope. But also, with regards to Eddie Howe, if he has a look back over the records of England managers, once they depart the England scene, they don't do very well. For example, going back to Alf Ramsey, who won the World Cup in '66 with England, when he was sacked in 1974, just 8 years later, that he never got a managerial job after that, and he won the World Cup. For heaven's sake.
And of course, there's a guy closer to our home, but I'm not going to say our hearts, called Steve McClaren, who who managed England and managed to make a dog's dinner of one season on Tyneside.
Yes, absolutely. And so my point being, Eddie Howe, he wants to manage that much that I don't think England would be of great interest to him. He wants to be absolutely successful, and he's got the perfect opportunity at Newcastle. He's got fantastic backup. God, dear, managers can only dream of the backup that Eddie Howe has got. He's not going to lose that or give it up.
One of the things I'm thinking of as well, Malcolm, when you think of the Newcastle owners who are very ambitious, want us to win trophies, want us to be in the Champions League, and have got the financial clout to do it. In the future, Eddie Howe can go out and almost buy anybody he wants. When he's England manager, you can't go out and buy a centre forward. If you need one, he's got to be born in England.
Yeah,
you can't go out and buy Haaland. You can't do that sort of thing as the England manager. You can take your blinkers off as the Newcastle manager and look at the whole vision of world football and try to pick who you want. When you're England manager, you're stuck with whoever you're stuck with, good, bad, or indifferent, and you can't improve it by your ability to spot good players. So no. Stay where you are. It's better for him, and hopefully it's better for us. It's definitely better for him in the future of Newcastle. As much as you can tell, the future of any club looks very, very good.
Yep, 100%. Training facilities, lads, is where I want to take you next. And Newcastle United are having some work done at their training facilities. They're hoping to return to a near enough completed training ground in the new year. And I just want to really ask you, Malcolm, from a player's perspective, how important is it to have good training facilities? And I know you come from a different generation, but Newcastle United's team now are, they're modern day players. They have a certain expectancy. Some of them have probably been to better training facilities than Newcastle. We've talked about the ludicrous situation under Mike Ashley where we had a blow up swimming pool with ice cubes in as to try and sort the players muscle injuries out. But joking aside, Newcastle are spending some money on this. How important is it, Mal?
Well, they're spending money on it because what everybody must remember is that Newcastle have their facilities were dark age facilities. There is a demand now by the Premier League, and I would imagine by the FA as well, but certainly by the Premier League, that a training ground must be up to certain standards and have tip-top facilities, each club. And Newcastle haven't had those. And Mike Ashley refused to put them in. And so that when it came to the youth team football, there are 3 levels. And Newcastle were in the upper level, but when there was an inspection of the training ground, they were relegated because the facilities were so poor. They were relegated from level 1 down to level 3. And they were told, you stay there for 5 years and then we will come and if the training ground is up to scratch, you can start to move up. But if your facilities aren't tip top, you stay where you are. And Ashley, he wasn't going to spend the money that was required. And so Newcastle, they were kept down the levels. Now, you go to Sunderland, tip top. Go to Middlesbrough, tip top. So when it came to young footballers in the northeast, Newcastle United didn't have first pick. Sunderland and Middlesbrough did. And so Newcastle, they were a long way down the list because their facilities weren't good enough and the club appeared disinterested in bringing them up to scratch. Now, the people in charge, they realise what this problem is, and the problem has been going on for years. And they are making this almighty push to get back up to a level where you can compete at the top. And Mike Ashley, he caused Newcastle United not to be able to compete at that higher level when it came to youngsters and what have you. So it sort of goes all the way through the structure of the club. And well done to the new board at Newcastle, the new owners. They're bringing it up into the 21st century, and it desperately needs that. Plus the fact that if you haven't got the right facilities for players to feel that they're being offered the opportunity to be at their very best, they don't want to be there. When they see that other clubs have got all the facilities and that there are players at those clubs who are absolutely benefiting by it, and Newcastle United players haven't been benefiting for years. And so it's going to take a long while for the whole structure of Newcastle United to really benefit by the new ownership. And so what this new training ground is, well, it should have been built years ago. And it was one of the reasons why Rafa Benitez didn't stay, because he wanted to have at least equally good facilities to other clubs in the Premiership, and it just didn't exist. And this was all part of the fallout with Benitez, and it's happening now. And I have the feeling that these people, they are just going to stay on top of absolutely everything and make sure it all gets done in record time, so that we can experience the benefits of it all the sooner. And it does work like that. It really does.
We've got to remember as well, guys, haven't we, that, it was 14 years of decay under Mike Ashley, where the minimum was done with the club generally, and that minimum was to try to remain in the Premier League and receive the Premier League money. And that was the height of ambition, and forget the training ground or other things, as long as we could do that. We've had 14 years of decay, and we haven't had 14 months of new owners to put it right. We haven't had 12 months until next month. We haven't had 12 months until next month. So things have been moving at an astonishingly quick pace when you consider how long these things in football normally take. So we have become so climatized to that, we almost take that for granted, in the way that we took Ashley's neglect for granted. But we've got to keep reminding ourselves sometimes, and the first year anniversary of the takeover reminds us that it's just a year. It's just a year. And when you look at the plans with the training ground, when you look at the appointments behind the scene with Dan Ashworth and the new guy that's coming from America, when you look at the overhaul of the team, the squad, etc., an awful lot's happened in an awful short space of time. So let's be grateful for that. And then let's cut out everything and go to Fulham and get a win, because I'm getting to need a win just to give us that little lift. So let's get the win on Saturday if we can.
Okay, lads. Question from Tom. He says, "Are we missing John Joe Shelvey more than expected at the start of the season, and would he be a starter when he is fit?"
Well, I've always said that if I was a player or any player, you know, when you become a better player, when you have a long injury layoff, because when you have a long injury layoff, people remember everything you do good and forget everything you do averagely or poorly and say, hey, by don't we miss Joe Blogs and Joe Blogs and Joe Blogs and Joe Blogs. We can do, first things first, as a sweeping generalization, we need everybody fit. Our squad isn't deep enough to stand injuries. And one of the reasons why I honestly believe we only have one victory in 7 games is because of injuries. We have just played back-to-back games with very average, by Premier League standards, opposition in Crystal Palace and Bournemouth, and have only drawn. But we had some maximum out, we had Wilson out, and we had Bruno out for 2 games, and then he came back and was rusty in the 3rd one. We can't stand injuries, so we need all them back. We need Darlow back as backup. We need Shelvey. We need Kraft. We need Ritchie, etc. All in position, not for the first team, sometimes just for backup, but we missed them all. But I honestly don't think that Shelvey makes a world of difference. The best thing that happens to Shelvey is when he's out for an eternity, because we remember the 60-yard Hollywood passes that actually reached the person that was supposed to reach and say, what a good player he was. We'll miss his
Sure, but John,
we forget the other part of his game because it's not there in front of us.
Right, but John, we don't pay. We're not playing a 60-yard passes game. That's not happening anymore. And Shelvey, the reason why he was doing that is because he's so slow that if he pings the ball a long way away from him, he's not going to get caught out. It's as simple as that. And I saw him all too often in midfield ignore Sean Longstaff. He'd turn his back on him when he had the ball. He wouldn't play it to him. He did the same with other players as well. And I thought, come on, you're naughty. And he knew exactly what he was doing. And he wasn't, and these were young lads being brought into the side in midfield, and he wasn't helping them. He wasn't just bringing them along, as young lads can sometimes need. What he would do is turn his back on them, ignore them, even if they were in space, and then he'd play a 60-yard ball. And what that meant was that the guys who were getting around Shelvey for passes, who he was ignoring, then had to turn and sprint 50 yards up the field. He never did.
I think we have missed. I can understand what the guy asking the question is on about, but I think that we have missed Bruno, we've missed Callum Wilson, and we've missed Maxi more than we've missed Shelvey.
Oh, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. And Bruno, he will take the Shelvey type role on, but he'll give it so much more. He'll get forward, he'll get into the box, he'll go and score goals, and he shows a huge amount of energy that Shelvey just doesn't have, just hasn't got it anymore. And Bruno, if you watch, he brings the youngsters in. He'll bring Willock into the game. He brings Longstaff. He wants to play on an equal par with everybody. But that's not the case with John Joe Shelvey. He plays for himself, not for Newcastle United and not for his team.
Okay, next question from John Ball. He used to play in goal for me at Felon Football Club and was my assistant manager. Big shout out to John. He says, "Evening, lads. How do you think Eddie will accommodate both Wilson and Isak in the same 11 when they are both fit?" Malcolm, will come to you because you're shaking your head.
No, it's quite simple. That they are such different players. Isak plays. He needs to face the opposing goal all the time and work from deeper than a centre forward. He's not a centre forward, this lad, but Wilson is. And Wilson, he's quite happy to play with his back to goal, and because he's always looking to suddenly just spin, and in he'll get. And so that and also Wilson, if you were to draw lines on the pitch that went from either post or from both the posts and just draw them all the way to the halfway line, he plays in that channel. He doesn't go wide. He doesn't even get into the inside forward positions, for heaven's sake. But Isak, he doesn't want to play through the middle, and so the two are they are of such different type players. I think they could be an absolute wow together. I really do, because Isak, he wants to go round, playing the arc around that centre forward type player, and it really does excite me to think these two players together, particularly with the wing quality that St. Maximin can offer, plus the good solid stuff that comes from Bruno, who will be behind them, supporting them, etc. And I think it's got the makings of a very, very exciting partnership up there. Will the manager, who has made it quite clear that he only likes one up front, is he going to definitely play two up front, though?
No, because my belief, Malcolm, and I've been into that and I've looked at it and I've listened at what he's talking about. He believes, Eddie Howe believes, that the system that he works now, which broadly speaking, and everybody can interchange, broadly speaking, is a centre forward through the middle and two wide guys. And that centre forward is Callum Wilson, number one choice. It's Isaac when Callum Wilson isn't there, and it's Chris Wood when both of them aren't there. But he will continue with that system when both Wilson and Isak are available, because Wilson will go through the middle, Isak will play on the right side, and Sam Maximin will play on the left side. And so he sees it that he is still playing the same system as he's loved since he arrived here.
And Isak will replace Almiron.
Almiron will be out.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I understand that. I still think that's it's just taking something a little bit special, because Isak, he can work both sides around Wilson, but by playing him in that particular role on that right-hand side,
I think he'll give him freedom, Malcolm. I think he'll give him freedom to roam.
Yes.
Because Wilson doesn't roam.
No, he doesn't. No, he will stay within the tram lines.
He plays between the posts. So he will be told to play between the posts. Maxi and Isak will be both given permission to roam and intertwine with Wilson. You might find Maxi go out right and Isak pop up on the left. They will be very fluid, the two wide guys, and the centre forward will be the centre forward.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, because I think it could be very, very exciting. I really do.
I think it can as well.
And
me too.
And you know, I would love to go and sit down with St. Maximin and play him back the tape of the Manchester City game.
He was wonderful.
Yeah, because the Manchester City right back, who has been a regular in the England side for many years, He was absolutely scared stiff.
He was terrified.
Absolutely, John. Yes, he was. And that's the power that St. Maximin has. And sometimes I don't think he realizes that he's got it. And I also don't think that he realizes just how he's then got to use it to really frighten the life out of the guy that's in front of him. And he should have left that right back an absolute nervous wreck for the rest of his life.
And Walker's quick, Malcolm.
Oh, he is quick.
To get back at the guy, and he was still terrified.
Yeah, but I even sort of looking 60, 70 yards across the pitch from where we sit, John, I'm watching, and I could see the fear in Walker's face. And he was just absolutely terrified.
And that hasn't happened too much, Malcolm. With Walker,
no, it hasn't
happened too much.
No, it hasn't. But St. Maximin, by heavens, I wish I could just put it in a bottle and make St. Maximin actually drink it. And it really just explode within him. He doesn't realize just how feared he is and how much more he will be feared if he really uses it in such a positive manner that because what he lacks is wanting to score goals all of the time. If he looked to constantly threaten to go inside and look to get beyond the back four, and he's got the skill to do it, for heaven's sake.
Yeah,
he's got everything,
but he doesn't realise at times just how he can use it. Going back to last season, he played against Brighton, and they just played. It was Norwich when they got relegated, and they played 7 across the edge of their penalty area, and St. Maximin ran across each defender until he arrived on the opposite wing, and then he turned round, he came across. All he had to do was just, as he's going across, just suddenly turn a right angle and duck through between 2 defenders, and he's in. He never did it once.
Yeah,
and that's not using the ability that he's got. And sometimes we know that he knows that he's got a lot of ability, but I don't think that he understands just how much ability he has. I don't think he understands how he can seriously use it.
Can I ask you, there's sometimes players like that, and they go through, as you would know, Malcolm, and they go through the whole career like that.
Yeah.
Did Hatton Ben Arthur ever realise how good he was? Did he ever see it? I mean, he was Maxi. He was Maxi in his day. I remember him scoring, and I remember him scoring 2 goals that were almost back to back. I forget the matches, Blackburn at home, and where he went through 4 people, went to the narrowest of angle and flicked him in the top corner. Sensational. Then what happened? Laurent Robert, good player, quality player, could have been so much better. Hatton Ben Arthur could have been so much better. Maxi could be so much better. Hugely, by the way, is this a thing about wide players? I've just realized they're all wide players.
Yeah.
You know, they were fabulous, Steve. They were fabulous. And they will always have a place in Geordie hearts, because once they stop playing and they go away, Newcastle supporters still talk today about what Hatton Ben Arthur did.
Yes.
Some of them with longer memories will still talk about what Laurent Robert did.
Or Terry Hibbert.
Oh, in 10 years' time, people will talk about what Maxi did. But will you do it consistently? Maxi still has time. It's too late for Robert. It's too late for Hatton Ben Arthur. Maxi still has time. Or are you going to be frustrating all your life? Brilliantly frustrating, but frustrating.
Gibbo, it's all about what Ian McKenna says there. A
What's that?
spark of creativity.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, but you know what's wonderful? We all love, don't we, as fans, and all three of our fans, regardless of what else we do, as fans, Newcastle United fans love creativity. By the way, creativity includes putting the ball in the net. That's the ultimate creativity. So it doesn't include just fancy down midfield players or tricky wingers like Bobby Mitchell if you go back far enough. We all love creativity. We all love to be entertained. We always will take to our heart entertainers. And I don't mean that particular side. I mean the history of the club. So we always want that. But there's degrees of it. There's people that do it all the time, like Peter Beardsley did. There's people that score goals all the time, which is creativity, like McDonald and Shearer. And there's players that did it fleetingly, like Greeny, because he got injured, but wonderful, wonderful players. And then there's players that promised so much, so much, and never quite got there. Hatton Van Arthur, Lowen were there. We could go on and on and on. And I want Maxi, before it is too late, to go out of this box he's in, which is the wonderfully potential creativity that he's got, and take it to the other level where he produces it all the time. Because otherwise, he's going to wake up, like Hatton Van Arthur, he's going to wake up, he's 31, and he ain't done everything that he ought to have done.
Yes.
And by the way, may I say, just to keep a lid on the top of the thing, and you'll understand this, Malcolm, when we talk about how great he is, and he really is, he hasn't played for France yet, He hasn't got an international cap yet.
Well, that is something which always makes me look at ASM and go, you know what? You're not as good as I think you are, kidder.
He talks about the Ballon d'Or. Well, you've got to start playing international football first.
Yeah, and again, the Ballon d'Or quote, I mean, we did use it on here. We did mention it on here, and I still think he was taken out of context. But he still said that's what he wants to do. But you are 100% right, John. When you're not playing for France and you're only playing for your team, you're never going to win the Ballon d'Or, mate. And let's have a reality check here, Mal. And John's 100% right, Mal.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. But I so enjoy watching Manchester City play. Because you look at what they've got, the Kevin De Bruyne's and what have you, and they can't score enough goals. And as great a player as De Bruyne is, for example, he just wants to score goals. He's a midfield player, for heaven's sake. He's not an out-and-out forward, but Guardiola has instilled in him that desire to really go and hurt the opposition. And you watch when one of his teammates scores, you've never seen such a Cheshire grin on a footballer as on De Bruyne. And that attitude, that's what St. Maximin needs. Get that attitude in you that he wants to go and punish the opposition as severely as he possibly can. And the way to do that is stick the ball in the net. You either do it yourself or you set somebody up to do it. And that really is just a rule of thumb for top attacking players like St. Maximin and it will get you into the international side without any shadow of a doubt. If he was making 15 goals a season and scoring nearly 15, he would be in the French side.
Yeah, I think it's a great point that John's made. And you know, when you're not a French international, you're never going to win the Ballon d'Or. Let's change tact. Let's change tact a little bit, Mal, because people like to use this show to ask you a question. Barry Hogan says, Malcolm, how long do you think you would have kept playing if you'd looked? And he says if you'd looked after your knees properly. I think that's a little bit unfair because you didn't not look after your knees. You were playing football, mate. You were banging goals in. You were scoring goals.
Yeah,
and it wasn't
the trouble is,
and it wasn't my.
The trouble is,
and it wasn't my era.
The opposition looked after Malcolm's knees instead of Malcolm looking after Malcolm's knees.
They were kicking him. They were kicking him with a height from the day that he scored a hat trick against Liverpool. They didn't like the fact that he did that. But
Clemens, do you think Clemens and Tommy Smith didn't say, "I'll look after that sod's knees"?
Yeah,
they looked after him. They looked after him in the way that they knew best. Mal, what I would say is,
we didn't get the protection from referees that players get today.
And there wasn't the protection anyway, Mal. What I would say is, listen, and Barry, please forgive me for changing your question slightly, but is that a regret, Mal? Is that a regret for you that you didn't get the opportunity because of injury?
Yeah, it certainly is. That I would have loved to have been playing well into my 30s, and to retire at 29. Dear me, and it's such a huge disappointment and a horrible disappointment because I hadn't achieved half as much as I would have liked to have done. But I was in a situation where I'd been away to Sweden to get myself fit because I had sort of been out for almost the whole of a season, and I was just getting myself fit as the season was coming to an end, and so it was. I got it agreed with Arsenal that I'd go abroad for the summer and play right the way through the summer. I needed to play. I hadn't played for sort of 8 months. And so I went over there, and quite simply, the first game I played, I got to about 80 minutes and things were okay. The next game, 75. The next game, 70, and it was this rapid deterioration of the knee that each game it sort of knocked off 5 minutes until I returned to Arsenal, and Don Howe had a thing where you would run as many times around a football pitch as you could, all in 12 minutes, and I struggled to do the 12 minutes. Seriously struggled to do the 12 minutes. The knee wasn't holding up. And so when you're in that situation and you can't play to the standard that you've been used to for many years, it's time to go. And it wasn't really, I'm not going to sort of find fault with anybody. That it didn't help the fact that a bit of information was left out of my medical notes, and that confused doctors down at Arsenal. But nevertheless, okay. So I'm not sort of going to go and get upset about that. But every player wants to go on and play as long as they possibly can. But in my case, that wasn't to be. So you just have to get on with it, And within a year of retiring from playing, I was managing, So I was very heavily involved in the game.
Which brings us very nicely on to the Malcolm MacDonald derby that we have this weekend, which is, of course, Newcastle United versus Fulham, and It's been a bit of a nightmare this for me because I had tickets for the game, and we've talked about it this week on the show. Transportation because of the rail strike has been derailed, for want of a better expression. And I've passed my ticket on to somebody who is going to fly down, and good luck to them. but it's a 3 o'clock kickoff. 2,300 away tickets sold, and for Newcastle United, it is a chance, I guess, to get maybe the second win of the season. Carl Darlow and John Joe Shelby remain sidelined, although the news this week that we've had from Newcastle United is that John Joe Shelby is making a big step towards making his return to the first team. His recovery seems to be going very, very well. Callum Wilson, though, yes, the number 9, he's available after missing the last 4 home games and away games due to injury, and he's set to be joined by both ASM, Alan Saint-Maximin, who we've just been talking about, and Bruno back in the squad, and Elliot Anderson has also recommenced training this week. So fingers crossed, Newcastle have got a few more attacking options. As we've already discussed, Alexander Isak will be missing due to the thigh injury on international duty, and Chris Wood is also expected to be out with a rib problem that required a scan. No further info on that at this moment in time. Fulham's manager in the Malcolm McDonald derby is Marco Silva. They are missing João, is it Palhinha? I think that's his name.
The midfield player, the Portuguese midfield player.
Yeah. Well, he is missing, and Mitrovic, I think it's a bit of killology, if you want my honest opinion. Lots of people saying that Mitrovic could be missing for the weekend. I tell you what, Mitrovic would walk over hot coals and hot Newcastle coals to play Newcastle this weekend, especially the form he's in. Referee is Darren England from Doncaster. The last match that he took part in with Newcastle United was the 2-0 home win over Arsenal in May. And on VAR, which we've often talked about on here, and it's always switched off, or normally switched off with Newcastle, is Mike Dean. Yes, good old Mike Dean, still kicking around nowadays on VAR. I'm not going to bore you with the whole travel arrangements. It's an absolute nightmare. Fly down or drive down. That's the best advice I can give to you if you're going to go down there this week. Gibbo, I've had people asking me questions this week on this show and in the street. Is this a must-win game for Newcastle, Jim?
You know the wonderful thing about that, and I'm only smiling because when Bushy was manager, everything was a must-win game. But it was a must-win game, so we didn't get into a deeper relegation fight. It's now a must-win game because we've only won 1 out of 7, but nothing to do with relegation. It is a I want to win game, because you know what? We could have done the whole hour on this. From my point of view, I look at the situation, and you know what's worried me so far this season? And I am so thrilled about where we've gone in the last 12 months from where we were. But I've also looked at the situation, and I'm absolutely delighted that we've only lost 1 out of 7. And I'm absolutely not delighted that we've only won 1 out of 7. Now, what has bothered me in the past, and everybody says, okay, boy, you're being negative, we haven't lost, is while our draw with Manchester City was absolutely magnificent, our draws with Brighton and with Wolves and with Crystal Palace and with Bournemouth weren't good. We could have won on paper all those games, or at least won 2 out of 4, etc. What I am worried about is that it's going to come home to roost not winning those games. For example, the last 2 home games we drew with Crystal Palace. I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't believe it when we then went and drew with Bournemouth. We give away 4 points there. 2 points against Palace and 2 points against Bournemouth. We're now going down to Fulham, who are incredibly in terrific form, incredibly because of everybody's idea of going straight back down, because that's what to do. And they're not. They're 6th top and we're 10th. They've won 3 games and we've won 1. They've scored 12 goals and we've scored 8. I mean, who would have said that? We're the richest club in the world, for God's sake. And Fulham have outgunned us on all those points. Who would have said that? But you know what? I would still say if every Fulham player was fit, and that includes Mitrovic, who, yes, was seen leaving the last Serbia game with his right ankle heavily bound.
He's still
But if,
got that on, John.
sorry?
He's still got it on.
Oh, he'll have it on to the game, and then he'll go out and score two. That's the way he goes about. It's the way he goes about his business. But if they had everybody fit, and we had everybody fit, and not just fit, razor sharp, match sharp, I would take us to win. But they're not going. We have no idea what side we're going to field. I believe we'll start with Wilson, and we'll start with Bruno, and we'll have Maxi on the bench, and we'll have Anderson on the bench. But that is not enough, because in nobody's fault, I'm talking about injuries, because we know, and Malcolm as a player knows better than anyone, there's a difference between being fit enough to start a game and being match sharp. We know that Wilson will start on Saturday because we've got no other centre forwards. We haven't got Isaac, and we probably won't have Chris Wood. He will start. We also know that he can't last 90 minutes because he's been out for 5 weeks. So what? If we get an hour out of him, we'll have done well. Then what happens? We know that Bruno will start. We saw Bruno start against Bournemouth, and while he's still terrific, he is not the player that the Bruno we know, because there's rust. There's a lack of match sharpness. So, and Maxi comes on, Anderson. If everybody's fit, Maxi plays up front on one side, and Anderson plays on the other side, and we'll have Wilson centre forward, and we'll have Bruno bombing with Joe Linton, and we'll have Longstaff sitting. We win. But it ain't going to be like that. It isn't going to be like that because they're not fit enough for it to be like that. So it becomes, and they are unbeaten at home. They've beaten Brighton, who are fourth or fifth up. They've beaten Brentford, who's next up here. And they've drawn with Liverpool, who had to get a late goal to get a draw. So they're bombing. It is a very, under the current circumstances, it's a very, very difficult game indeed.
It is a very difficult game. Malcolm, it's a club that you hold very dear to your heart. And Newcastle versus Fulham, as Newcastle versus Arsenal, is always a game which you're very emotional about, I guess. But yeah, it is. It's a big game, isn't it? And it's a big game for both teams.
Yeah, it is. Hugely important for both clubs. And I have watched Fulham, and I think they are a super footballing side. They are terrific in attack. They're still dodgy at the back, and they can be caught out. But that they have a tremendous confidence to go and score goals against sides, and particularly at Craven Cottage this particular season. I think the manager's done an absolutely terrific job. You know, when you think that 2 years ago when they came up, they spent £115 million and went straight back down, and they really were absolutely shocking. This guy, he spent not as much as that, but he has put together one hell of a side. They absolutely flow down both sides. They pass the ball brilliantly, and they're on the constant move. Newcastle have got to be very, very aware. I think that Newcastle's defence has been playing really well, but they're going to have to play very, very well on Saturday to hold Fulham. I can see Fulham scoring goals, but I will be very surprised if Newcastle don't score goals either. Because, as I say, Fulham, they get sloppy at the back. And so I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. And I can see it being a really quite fantastic game.
Yeah, me too.
full of attack, going both ways. And I just hope that if Wilson plays, that we get a really good solid hour out of him, and that we get things coming into the box for him. That's where Newcastle lack at the moment, that we don't get enough ball into the box.
Okay, John, I'm going to go 2-2 as well. Malcolm's gone 2-2. Wilson will start, Blue Rhythm Boy, and Malcolm has already said he feels that if he does start, he's going to score. 2-2 is where we're going. Are you going to be brave, John?
No, I'm going to go draw. I'm not necessarily saying it'll be 2-2. The only reason, if every one of our players was fit and every one of their players is fit, I would go for a Newcastle win. Fit and razor sharp. They're not. Our lot aren't. So I will be. Manchester City, I was thrilled with the draw. The other 4 draws, I was definitely not. But I will be most happy with the draw at Fulham, given our current medical situation, which is not good. But you know what? We'll be thrilled with the draw. And you know what we'll do? We'll be sitting here in 1 week's time and say, that's only 1 win out of 8. Can we beat Brentford? That's what we'll be doing.
This is the thing with Newcastle. It's so frustrating. It is, and it always has been. But we've got money behind us. We've got owners who care a lot more than the previous owner. And we're in a situation where things could change. But we've all gone for a draw, 2-2, 2-2, and a draw from John. Tune in next week to find us. And we do listen to what people say. People wanted a slightly later time, so we're going to go for 6:30 on a Thursday, if that is all right with everybody. It does cut in slightly to what we do. John likes to have his way of doing things. I've got to be honest, I do as well. However, I'm the one doing the late shift the rest of the week because I'm doing 7 to 8. But thank you to the lads. Thanks to John and thanks to Malcolm for chipping in as always, as they always do on a Thursday. It's great to be, for me personally, as a Newcastle fan, it's always great to be working with the 2 legends on a Thursday night. It's my favourite show of the week, and great to see you lads. And look forward to seeing you both again soon. And I'm going to finish with the ads, lads. So good to see you, lads. Take care.
All right.
Take care.
Yes, let's.
Big thank you to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 273 or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or go to the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD Hemp and Cannabinoid Specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. And thanks to 3 Property, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the Northeast. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's Sauces. They are handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickys.co.uk or give them a call on 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up underneath the video to like it. It does us a big favour. And click share to share to your social media such as Facebook and Twitter. Maybe add it to a Newcastle United group. You can also make a donation. Just hit the thanks button underneath if you're enjoying the content and you want to share something with me or the people on the channel. And you can also click join, which means that you commit to maybe a monthly membership, or you can become a cult member. How do you do that? Well, you go to the website, NUFCmatters.com, and you search for membership. What do you get for your £25 one-off payment? You get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. We also have a smart code. There you go, the QR code there. If you put your smartphone over it, it'll take you straight to the website, and you can get involved in a cult membership pack today. We also give you something for nothing. If you subscribe to the show, then email john@nufcmatters.com and get your free car window sticker now. We also support the food bank on here. nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is the Matchday Bucket website. You just need to go there and you can make a virtual donation. Don't forget, during the season on match days, we're at the Dog and Parrot with Supermac, pre-match and post-match. And we're at Pumphrey's, John Anderson and John Gibson, pre-match only. Also got the Takeover anniversary party coming up at the Irish Centre. Tickets are £2 on the door, and you can get your tickets for that from nufcmatters.com. And Supermac will be at the Terrace Club in Seaton Delaval, Friday the 11th of November. Tickets are a tenner, table is £650, and you can get those tickets from 0191 237 0133.